So the big question is this: how do small businesses like yours, who feel like you're doing all the right things and going to all the right events, reach the federal buyer in a way that helps you win more contracts? That is the question, and this is the place to get your answers. My name is Neil McDonnell. Welcome to the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. Okay, let's get started. My name is Neil McDonnell with the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to talk to you today about how to analyze a document, any kind of document you find on the internet when you're doing your homework research on a federal agency. How do you analyze it to come away with action steps or good knowledge that'll help you move your sales forward in federal government contracting? Specifically, this is for BD or capture, BD being where you really want to dig more into a federal agency and learn more about them. And capture is about going after a particular opportunity and chasing that down. So we're going to get to that in 1 second. I do want to say that this content is brought to you by the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, which you're seeing here. Go ahead and come on over to this site and visit. If you haven't been here, there's so much content added every single day. And one of my favorite sections that we've put together is the homework series on various agencies. So what I'm about to do today is related to the Navy. So we'll throw this deck up on the, no pun intended, we'll throw this deck up on the Navy homework platform series so you can take a look at it. Let me go ahead and get going on what I want to show you. Okay, so in here you can see this deck, and let me go ahead and see if I can zoom it to full screen. There you go. We got full screen, and we're going to go through here. So this is the future of the Navy's cyberspace, right? It's this Navy Cyberspace Transformation. So I'm going into this video today, this session, thinking that I'm representing a company that does cybersecurity in the federal government. So if that's your space, you're going to love what I show you today. If it's not your space, don't worry about that. Just follow along with what I do, because there's decks like this, there's information like this, there's strategic plans like this out there in all areas of what the government has to do and sell, maintain, et cetera. So I'm just going to go through here with what these guys did. And this is the executive director of U.S. Fleet Cyber Command. You might have seen me do another video on them, but this is their cyberspace transformation that I want to go through, and I want to find out what's in there. The first thing I look at, and this is really helpful, is just looking at these three logos tells me there's some sort of relationship between them. And I'm going to learn about that relationship as we go down. This slide, it's a lot of information, and each slide is going to be a lot of information. But what it's doing for me is telling me from left to right the relationship of these three organizations and what they're working on. So Joint Forces is at the DoD level, and then the Fleet Cyber Command is at the Navy level, and 10th Fleet is underneath Fleet Cyber Command. And you'll see this in a minute, but basically, if you read this stuff in the middle for Fleet Cyber Command, you would see, and this is my way of paraphrasing it, that they're saying what we should do. And then the U.S. 10th Fleet executes on what they just said we should do. So you can think of those two in that particular way. And then Joint, I'm not paying attention to Joint today. Okay, so our page down to the next one. This slide's really helpful for me because you begin to see this entire relationship of the entire government that's out there, right? Everything that is trying to pull together. Here you got NSA and Strategic Command or Space Command, and then all these other ones, and they all feed back down into Fleet Cyber Command, right? This center one. And Fleet goes straight down into the 10th Fleet logo. And from here, you begin to see the execution wing of the Navy Cyber Command. That's just my words for it. But basically, I can see these task force or task groups that are in here. And that's good for me because it makes me want to go, well, what is the Task Force 1010 or 1020? And I'll go look at it, see what area they specialize on, et cetera. And then I can learn whether I should be talking to them about something. The other thing this slide tells me about at the very bottom, you can see this group has about 2,000 folks, where you come over to this other main group and it's got 58,000 folks. I'm like, all right, there must be a lot more activity and money and potential for me to help in this right-hand side. That's not necessarily so, but typically where they have more people, they'd have more room for contractors, which we are as small businesses out there. The other thing, I've done a whole video on the commands on the Navy, and you want to take a look at it. But in this perspective, we're seeing how these commands fit in with Cyber Command or Fleet Cyber Command. And that's a very useful thing to see as you look at these system commands and combatant commands, et cetera. This next slide, there's a lot of information on here, and I kind of already took a look at it. But the biggest thing I take away just from this slide, if I take away nothing else, and this is huge, is right here where the CNO is saying, make cybersecurity part of our DNA. If you're in the cybersecurity business, how can you help them make cybersecurity part of our DNA, right? There's a whole world around this, and cybersecurity is the future. It's never going away, right? It's about equivalent to oxygen. If we don't have cybersecurity, there's a good chance we're just going to die. If we don't have oxygen, there's a really good chance we're going to die. And so take that away, and also consider how what that really means to the Navy. When they sit there and say that they need something to be part of their DNA, they are telling you right there how vital it is. And you'll see in a few slides later how important they think the DIB is. And that's the Defense Industrial Base, small businesses, and those large companies out there. All right, let's come down to this slide. This one's really telling for me as a person who might be researching cyber. The top title, you see it says, "We are getting better, but it's still too hard." This is a 2020 deck. They just did it last year. And I think it was within a year. And they're talking about how, of course, they've had this transition from 2009, 12, 16, and into 17 as they move forward. And, and they've got all this activity improving. And then here comes this CVE 2020-061. That's basically I think it's a Microsoft patch, but basically there was this huge security violation, and that solves it. The point is, when you look at this, and this is the top part of the slide I'm talking about, when you look at this, you're the experts, right, in this particular space. If you're in cyber, you're the experts there. And if you're in construction, really, frankly, you're the cutting edge. You understand best practices, lessons learned, what's going on throughout the entire industry, many industries, not just DoD as an example. But what can you bring to these folks to help them understand how it doesn't have to be that hard? And that's something they're looking for. I understand you've been doing a lot and it's still hard. Well, here's what we could do to help you make it better. That's what I see when I start looking at some of this. The one thing that's missing here that I would want to see more of is a 2020. And I just got to love this, this title that they got in there for WannaCry. That just seems appropriate as they look at that. But look at this bottom line. This one was really telling to me. And these aren't supposed to be just buzz phrases that you look at and you go, oh, that's nice, it's on a deck. No, Navy operators, right? They should be performing normal peacetime and wartime functions without any hiccups. But they keep encountering these operational challenges. And the key word here is unnecessary operational challenges. And to me, that's an implied need. Explicit need is if they sit there and say, hey, we have these and we want you to solve them. But it's an implied need, borderline explicit need that says these operational challenges are unnecessary. We shouldn't have to experience these in the Navy. Hey, what can you do, industry, to help us solve it? So when I see that, that's what I think. And I would be taking that as a capture BD person back to the small business, or excuse the proposal writers, and saying, hey, I want to figure out how to integrate this in and how to get our response to address how our company could help them remove some of these unnecessary operational challenges. And when you're a capture person, I would be trying to explore what are those unnecessary operational challenges. Can you talk more about that? BD or capture person, you're trying to figure that out. Okay, so now we're into the future. Here they're describing just the future that's out there. And the reason this is really great is because if you're not fully aware of what's going on in the Navy, you begin to see a lot of these major programs that you can research and figure out where could you fit. As a small business, there's no way you're playing at that top level as a prime. So you want to figure out, how can I get in there? And keep in mind, I don't care if things been awarded or not. There's always room for you if you're the best at what you do. Right? If you try to do too many things, you can never be the best at what you do. But if you focus very tightly on cybersecurity, let's say as an example, it's not that hard to become the very best. The people the government can trust trusted advisors that they can look to. Okay, and then down below, it begins to talk more about technology. And over on the right-hand cloud, you're looking at things where they talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning as the future, additive manufacturing, cryptocurrency, and 5G are in here. This deck was briefed by the person whose name was on the front. This deck was briefed by them, and they would have talked a lot about this going forward. So you want to go find them. But one of the things that they talked about that I thought was so interesting was I might have just focused on, let's get artificial intelligence, machine learning as an example in there. Let's talk to him about solutions. But he was talking about how the network is so old, it's 10, 20 years lagging behind what we have today. And if we start bringing in all this new technology, all these new capabilities, that might begin to hit the network. And so you want to pay attention to something like that, because, and I'm stretching here what I wanted to say in this video, but if you're going to write a response to an RFI or a proposal, if you just talk about some great solutions on machine learning and intelligence and how they can help the day-to-day activity, but don't talk about the challenge I just mentioned of the hit to the network, then you're missing a big opportunity to differentiate yourself from the competitors, because most competitors won't think about that. I'm missing my technology word, but the hit to the network, right? When you're putting a larger load on there. But if you say, this is what we recommend, it's going to have a hit to the network. And so we recommend you be aware of the risks like this, you pay attention to the risks, we could mitigate or even avoid some of the risks if we did this. Now you're talking about the next level up. And so, think about that. And this deck is helping me think about that, right? I see that the areas I might be able to fit with this cloud. And then because I researched the man who did this briefing, I'm able to go back and figure it out. And by the way, just to be totally candid, the reason I'm saying the guy on the front, is because I don't want to butcher his name. I'd love to get him on a interview so I can interview him for the industry, especially small business. But until I hear his name, I'm not going to butcher it. I'd rather just say the man. Okay, let's go on down here to the next couple of slides. This slide, it needs to be brief so we can hear what they're trying to say. I did find it ironic, though, that when I thought about this, I went, oh, it'd be great if we could live life without an FAA. But I don't think that was their point. I think their point is that it's so vital to have the FAA. But this is a great place for me to, follow up and go, what were you trying to talk about here? So now we start getting into a huge amount of information that they're putting out. And, this is where they see all of this coming together. And the reason I want to point this out is, where do you fit? Whether you're in cybersecurity or anything else, where do you fit inside of their entire network, right? They're talking about so much in here, and I don't want to totally go into the jargon side of the technical, because some of you are not IT necessarily. But when you look at this, this is telling you so much about how they envision this being stood up in an ideal scenario, how it reaches out to the Navy, for example, out in the field doing the I almost said doing the job. That would have been insulting, but doing the job they do. But bringing this whole network from where it's nice and safe in the rear all the way to the front where it's dangerous. I want you to sit there and go through this and look at this especially if you're in cybersecurity. And then when you're going to do meetings with small business specialists or contracting officers, anybody where you're trying to get in to meet the program office folks, you can use this to say, hey, I was looking at this. I'd like to follow up with somebody more about, this controlled access section right here in the middle and who manages that. And, you just walk in through. Let me go. I think it comes up a little bit more here. So this slide, I don't want to go too far into it, but the whole point of it is they're talking about what they want to get done, what they envision out there, and where can you fit. Look at this slide, break it down, and then begin to dig into the areas that fit into your space. And the reason is partly so that you can use it for BD when you're knocking on doors, but the other part, like I've mentioned, is proposals. When you're writing proposals, you need to come back and speak to their language. You don't need to copy it verbatim, but you need to understand that the things that they're talking about. So here's just a huge set of data and a couple of graphics, right? I commend the people who did the graphics and threw that on the screen and made it look like that. But here, this slide this portion on the left is what you saw in an earlier slide a little bit, put down here at the bottom. But then it ties together the whole rest. Let me see if I can zoom in without screwing this all out. Right about there. So if I zoom out, this is something I just want you to understand. When you're thinking about any part of your IT solutions, and in this case, cybersecurity or whatever, what's the big picture? Do you understand the big picture? This is something larges do. Partly they do it really well because they have people who used to work in the Navy now working. And so they're bringing that experience and knowledge. But the Navy is putting this information out for us small businesses as well to understand their vision, how things are interacting. Again, I mentioned I'm going to try to get this briefing done by the guy who does it instead of me, so that you can learn more about it if you're actually in this space. But take the time to look at this. This should not just be eye candy where you look at it and you go, oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, I saw it. It's like, no, look at all these arrows. What are they talking about? Because somebody took the time not only to draw it, but to conceptualize this and figure out, what do I want? What are we trying to communicate on this left-hand side coming up and down with packet losses and latency? And that's kind of the impact, right? Over here on the right-hand side, similar type stuff. Somebody put this together to communicate internally what they're trying to do. And then they put this out to the industry. And if you come over to the right-hand side, it's something similar where I don't want to get too far into it because it makes me have to read it much, much more. But the idea is that you're seeing the traffic moving around and they're giving you an understanding of what they're trying to accomplish, right? And so here they're talking about, on the left-hand box that's gray, the services they provide. And over on the right, they're talking about the tools that are in the environment. Begin to look at these things and figure out, like I said before, how do you fit in? How do you help them manage the attack? Manage the risk on this environment, and what can you do to help them? Again, I don't want to go too far into the IT side at the moment. Let me zoom out. Will you let me go to a page? I think that's a page. There you go. Okay, here's another one. We again won't go too far into it except for to say these 4 bullets point out again what they're looking for, right? I want to distinguish between anomalies due to faulty equipment versus attacks, adversarial activity, right? What they're saying in that bullet is, maybe right now we don't have a full understanding, is our network being slowed down because we just have problems with our equipment, a loose board, whatever you want to call it, right? Or is somebody trying to attack our network? And for those of you in cybersecurity, you're much more knowledgeable than I am about this, but some people can attack the network and make it seem like it's a faulty equipment type of thing. Well, what could you do to address that? So here they're just talking about what they want done. And if you're in cybersecurity and if you're in network engineering, network management, whatever it is, then you should be able to talk to these things and dig further into it. And let me pause for one second, because this is a big small business challenge. Is sometimes we don't do enough capture and BD, frankly, due to limited resources, but take the time to do some, and you'd be amazed at what 8 hours of capture deep into a particular opportunity will do to help make sure you're writing the right response. Because you could be the very best for the Navy, but if you can't write it in the right way, in the correct way, then they won't know that, and they won't sit there and say, let's choose Johnny over Janie or Janie over Johnny. It's, you want them to figure it out. And so in here, I just look at, this image, and if this was my space, I would understand what they're trying to say and be able to communicate it back to them. And down here, just, you don't ignore anything where you see a must, right? We must have such and such to deal with things that we're dealing with. They need to deal with the threat, but this admiral is making it very clear about something. And if you're in the cyberspace and you're looking at this deck, then it makes sense in there. So now we've brought it all about the Cyber Fleet Command, and now we're bringing it down to how can the small businesses help, and those larges that are also part of the DIB. But I'm only speaking to the smalls, right? And so in here, these guys are telling us we want smalls to come in. We want you to come in and don't, and I love this line at the top, don't think about an individual contract. Of course you want those, but we need you to see in the bigger picture. Down here at the bottom gray bar, it's like, come in here and tell us how you're going to help us transform to support the Department of the Navy, right? In here, this one, they call this out. This is something small business professionals and contracting officers have said forever in the green. We need your input to our RFIs, meaning respond to the RFIs. A lot of us in the industry say this over and over again, that that's the place to respond, because you'll be able to shape an opportunity through a series of RFIs or sources sought. And then you can see the rest of this activity on your own. But the point is, they're opening themselves. Fleet Cyber Command is saying, we want you to come in. We want to talk to small businesses and larges, obviously, but we want to talk to small businesses about how can you help us. And some of you 5 and 10, 15 person firms are the very best tiger teams, if you will, in cybersecurity or network operations, engineering, cloud. Get in there. They will see this, but you need to be able to get in there and talk to them. So that's the whole idea of getting out of here, is that they're willing to talk to me. I'm going to go knock on their door. Okay, so that was the whole thing really quickly on this Navy Cyberspace Transformation deck. I was just trying to show you not the details of the deck necessarily, but how I look at the slides in an individual deck or pages in a document to pull something out that gives me action items on what to do. And then while I'm looking at it, I'm creating a task list that would move forward. If you found this content valuable, others will too. Please give it a thumbs up so they can find it. If you'd like to connect with me personally, do so on LinkedIn. And then we often do free training webinars and interview federal buyers. Sign up for the GovCon Chamber's email list to be notified about these opportunities right here on this website, www.govconchamber.com. And you can find that right here to sign up. There's a link right on the homepage. Finally, please consider becoming a sustaining member of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. Help us bring this great content to you for $1 a day. I'm Neil McDonnell, wishing you great success.